Welcome back, miners. My name is Tracy Kriegel, and I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And my name's Amber Johnston, and I'm also a counselor here at Student Wellbeing, and it's time for your morning cup of Joe. So, with it being January, I would like to talk to you about New Year's resolutions.
Ooh, it's that time again, isn't it, Amber?
Yes. Did you set any this year?
Oh, the same one I always do every year. Stay healthy, lose some weight, get in shape.
I think those are pretty common. Like,
Everybody has those, don't they?
well, I was like, is there like, it's like a form, like almost like everybody goes down, get healthy, get in shape, like boop, boop, boop,
Yeah.
check down the list. Yeah.
Same ones, yeah.
But have you ever noticed how when it gets to like February or March, all those gym memberships everybody signed up for in January are suddenly sitting unused and the gym parking lot is now empty again?
Yep, guilty.
Been there, done that.
We make excuses, we get busy, something comes up,
Right.
know.
So, why is that? Why is it that we have this idea that we want to do something and then we set a goal to do it and then we get frustrated ourselves for not doing the thing, but we just never do it and we just don't, we even stop doing basic important things and can't even state a reason why. Like maybe we've stopped, I don't know, cleaning our room or doing the dishes and we can't state why, or we set the new year's resolution to go work out and we stop working out even though we say we want to be fit and we want to do it and we watch workout videos on our phone, but then when it comes time to actually get dressed and go to the gym we can't make ourselves do it.
A lot of it comes down to the simple two words, emotional energy.
Absolutely. Emotional energy is a big one.
It is.
So let's talk about emotional energy and motivation.
Okay.
So for those of you who might be familiar with the podcast, our very first episode was about emotional energy and using D&D spellcasting to explain emotional energy. For those of you who haven't had a chance to check it out, it's out there. But for those of you who are not familiar with D&D, I'm going to use a different method to explain it. And this time I'm going to talk about it like a table. So I want you to imagine that you have a table in front of you. And everything that you do through the day is a book. And we're going to open it up and we're going to put it on the table. So if I'm going to take a shower, that's a pretty small book. I would say that's more brochure. That we're just going to put that on the table. And let's say I have a physics paper that's due. It's a 10% of my grade, so that's a pretty big book on my table. And then I have a presentation, and maybe I'm a little afraid to speak in front of public. So that one's going to be a bit bigger. That's more like your encyclopedia, like dictionary, encyclopedia size, big book on the table. Then I've got clubs and organizations, and I've got housework that I need to do, and my homework, and I've got this and that and the other. And everything that I do keeps being a book. What happens to the table after a while?
It's full.
It gets full. What does the table do when it's covered in books and it's full? There's no more room.
More. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't hold anymore. And it starts to bow, right?
Right.
Well, when you're overloaded, isn't that how you feel? Like you're bowed and you're about to break?
Yeah, absolutely. The legs starting to shake.
Yeah, and that's how we feel when we feel overwhelmed. We feel like that table that's over full. So what we have to do is clear the table off whenever we can. So we do that by doing self-care. So if let's say I do a mindfulness technique, that allows me to close up and put up a couple of those books and stick them back on the shelf. And maybe I haven't cleared the table completely, but I've made a little bit of more space. And then as I do that continuously, all throughout the day, multiple times, the table gets a little less full and a little less full and a little less full. So after a few days or a couple weeks, now my table isn't breaking anymore. So I might not notice the results immediately or for very long immediately, but over time it really helps.
Right. It's interesting. I was at my beautician the other day, and she was saying how stressed and overwhelmed she was.
Mhm.
And I asked her, I said, well, what are you doing for your well being? She says, well, what do you mean, my well being? And I said, well, how are you taking care of yourself? Well, I don't have time for that. And I said, well, can I give you some ideas, and we were sitting and chatting, and she says, well, I just don't have time to do any of those things. It just takes too much time.
Right.
And I hear that frequently from people. And so I was hearing you say, adding some mindfulness things. And so one of the things I've noticed when I was younger and as I've gotten older, I've always heard people say, well, just take some deep breaths, meditate. And I always thought, well, meditation seems like something that would be really, really long to do.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Sounds so formal,
Sounds so
doesn't it?
formal, doesn't it? And when I was talking to my beautician Saturday, was when it was, she says, well, that takes a really long time to do.
Absolutely
And it
does
does
not.
not. And so I was standing there checking out, and I said, well, do this with me. And so I ran her through part of what's part of our positive mindfulness program. And we did it together. And she goes, that like took 2 minutes. And I said, I know. And I said, how do you feel? And she goes, I feel better.
Right.
And I said, that took 2 minutes of your day.
Right.
And I said, so part of your well being may only be 2 minutes here and there a day, but that's part of, like you said, taking a book off the shelf.
Mhm.
And that's part of that, giving some time and attention to self.
Yeah, to yourself.
Mhm.
And it's absolutely about that intention. And it doesn't have to be like people say self-care and you automatically think of like bubble baths and
Right.
and massages and
Mhm.
and like these big long like I mean not everybody has that kind of time. I'm a big advocate of self-care snacks. We even have a podcast episode on that. But we've got what a self-care snack would be something that was between 2 to 5 minutes several times a day. So and it can be as simple as standing up and stretching, like so that you're not sitting in front of the computer for 4 hours. Because sitting in front of the computer and not moving for a lot of hours can cause your back to crick up, and then you get home and you've got this, your neck hurts and your back hurts. Well, okay, so I can take a couple minutes once an hour to stand up, stretch, and take a walk around my office so that I don't have a sore back when I get home. Because guess what? That sore back's a pretty big book on that desk. And I can take a couple minutes to get a new drink. Like, so I have fresh water with, I like ice in my drink. But a fresh drink with some ice in it, and taking those little steps that make you feel special, that make you feel rejuvenated.
Right.
Whether that be a breathing technique or just standing up and stretching.
Yeah, absolutely. And walking around the building, especially if you're staff or faculty, sometimes you're in the building all day. Take a minute, go out around the building, come back, in between whatever you're doing, and just breath of fresh air. And if you're a student and you're working or you need a minute in between classes, get that break if you're in the same building all day. So yeah.
Well, and you've got I'm a big proponent of keeping playlists on your phone of videos that you find funny. So I've got I have a little playlist of just random things that I find amusing. And so maybe I'm more on the 5 minute end, and maybe I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety. I can pop out and watch one of those humorous videos, and it helps dispel some of that anxiety, and that can be an act of self-care. Self-care doesn't always have to look like bubble baths and back massages.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah.
So we have a few basic reasons why we don't do things. Sometimes it's that we lack a reason why we need to do it. So maybe we're doing it because somebody else wants us to, and it's not something that we're actually invested in. And deep down, we don't want it. It's not even something we want. We're just doing it because the other person wants us to do. So you don't want to go to the gym because you hate doing the elliptical, but we just joined it because, let's say, our boyfriend wanted us to, and now I can't make myself go. Yeah. So how often do we do that? Like sign up for things we don't want to do.
Right.
And this is common. So ask yourself, is this something you really want to do? And maybe you don't want to do your homework, but you do actually want to pass the class. So, does the homework matter to you? Yes, because I want the end result. When this one pops in is when I don't even want the end result. Like this doesn't matter to me. Um, Maybe deep down you don't want that major. Maybe your homework doesn't, you don't want to do your homework because you want to major in something else and you're feeling conflict or feeling like this major isn't something that's right for you, or it doesn't feel like this class is going to get you any closer to your goals. Sometimes we feel disconnected from those classes. So often in those cases, looking at what we really want can help adjust ourselves to our expectations of ourselves.
I think that's when we look at what our values are, it's what's taking us away, what's taking us towards our goals. Sometimes we stay
That act.
the act, like the choice point. Sometimes we get fused with the things that are taking us away. And I've heard people say this frequently. Well, this class isn't going to help me, get where I'm going in my profession. Well, that class is a part of your curriculum. So if we take on that fused thought of this class isn't going to get me where I need to be, if it's a part of your core curriculum, that's a part of unhooking from that fused thought and recognizing this core class is a part of that core curriculum that's going to be part of what's going to take you towards your future. And so it's unhooking from that negative thought,
yes,
which is taking you away from your goal. And so it's recognizing, okay, how do I stay motivated for this class, even though maybe it's not my favorite class,
right?
But it's taking me towards my goals. And
Yes.
so it's finding that internalized motivation to say, okay, maybe not my favorite class, but still getting me towards my goal. And so that's that piece that it's unhooking and defusing from what's taking you away from your goal and what can motivate you to move towards your goals. And that's that choice point. It starts with your thoughts, your emotions, and the behavior. So that's
Right.
important.
It's that you can't have your pudding if you won't eat, or don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Had to put a little quote in there.
No, you're good.
So the next thing we want to do is see if there's a block or a reason why we're avoiding this activity. And this lack of motivation is easy to see when we avoid homework for only one class. So maybe it's a professor that I'm having a disagreement with or I don't like, or maybe it's a class that there's something about it that I just made me upset or made me angry. Maybe it's triggering me in some way. When we avoid a specific task or a specific kind of tasks, it could be we're avoiding a person or doing a certain activity individually. In this case, our lack of motivation is actually avoidance, and we have to figure out why we're avoiding that task specifically.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if we've got frequently, you'll have it in the case of somebody has a professor that maybe that professor yells a little bit much, or maybe they have a personality that's a little bit abrasive to them, or maybe this subject matter reminds them of something that is painful for them. You'll find them kind of avoiding it in that case.
Sure. And that's where you change your thoughts and try to focus on the positive things within the class and the positive things about the person and not focus on the negatives. So finally, there's a lack of emotional energy. And for those of you experiencing depressive symptoms, this is your category. So your table is full, completely full. And the lower your emotional energy is, the smaller that table is. And so the bigger your anxiety, the bigger your books are. And so sometimes your table is so small that you can't put any books on it. And on those days you can't get out of bed or you brush your teeth, those are those days that are the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those of you who've heard, there's a pop culture thing talking about being out of spoons, spoon theory. And so spoon theory would say at this point, you're out of spoons. And at this point, we have to kind of look at ourselves and we have to say, how big is the table? What can I get on it? If I can't brush my teeth, can I rinse my mouth out with some mouthwash? If I can't get dressed and take a shower, maybe I can just wash off with a washcloth and change my shirt. Maybe I can't make a sandwich, but can I stand in the door of the refrigerator and eat the lunch meat out of the bag? I'm looking for what my table will hold in order to get as much done that needs to be done without worrying about fitting into any rules. Like, because we feel like you feel like there's a rule where I have to eat a sandwich. No, nobody says you can't sit there and just eat the lunch meat.
You're saving the carbs.
Well, you can have the bread in one hand and the lunch meat in the other, like, and then the pickles on the table. Like, you don't have to put the pieces together to eat the sandwich.
There's no rule.
There's no rule. And so the important part is that you're using the space you have the best you can without judging yourself for not having the emotional energy to do things the way we think they quote should be done. It's we can't white knuckle our way to good mental health, and no matter how hard we try, we'll eventually run out of space on that table. So if we can't move things around for a little while, maybe we can just move things around a little while until we can fix the problem and get as many things in there as done as possible.
Right. So how do we fix it? So some of the solutions, things we can do is first we can take care of ourselves the best way that we can with the energy that we have. And the more I sacrifice my comfort, the less energy I'm going to have to get things done. So we need to take a break, take baths, eat healthy foods you enjoy, and get enough sleep. So eating healthy foods like apples, oranges, bananas, things that you wouldn't buy at the fast food.
The triangle.
A triangle, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sleep, food, healthy food, water, sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your triangle.
Yeah. Be kind to yourself. Don't tear yourself down. You're making up being. Don't say you're a failure. Take a little bit at a time. You're human. You're not superhuman. You're not Superman. You can't do everything. Look at what's on your table and ask yourself, how would you react to a friend attempting to do all those things to you? Sometimes we give our best advice to our friends, but then we tear ourselves down. So what would you tell a friend how they're doing?
Well, and sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees, so we don't realize how much we've taken on until we step back from it and be like, if you had a friend that was had to do all of these things, what would you say to them? And then you're like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Because when we're in the middle of doing it, it doesn't feel like it's that much because we haven't listed it all out and looked at everything that we've got on our plate.
Right.
But then when we stop and we start thinking about all of the things we're doing, we're like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm so tired. This is why I'm so overwhelmed. I've got so much on my plate.
Right. Yeah.
So we want to look at our tasks in this case. We want to look at our tasks and we want to say, am I asking too much of myself? So let's use the example of working out. Your New Year's resolution is to work out every single day. And that's a lot. Working out every day is a whole lot. So chances are, starting that habit, you'll make it a few weeks and then you'll miss a day. And because it's all or nothing, you will feel embarrassed and not want to go back. And before you know it, you haven't been in months. I sound familiar?
Pretty much.
And instead, let's stop, okay? And let's look back and let's look at where you are right now, okay? If you're not working out at all and your goal is to work out more, then anything is more than nothing, right?
Right.
Okay. So what if we set a goal to take a 30-minute walk twice a week?
Doable.
Is that achievable?
Doable, yes.
Is that a lot more doable than going to the gym every day?
Yes.
Okay, so what we want to do is not try to start at where we want to be. We want to start where we're at and take a step so that we're one step closer to our goal. So it doesn't mean you can't go more. So if you're feeling like I want to walk more and you walk a couple extra days, great, fantastic. Give yourself a gold star. But it means that I don't have that expectation of myself. I'm not going to consider myself to have failed if I don't walk those 2 days or 5 days or whatever. So if you've got it just set at 2 days and it's easy, then it's an easy win. Right? Because 2 days still more than 0. Correct. You've still advanced, you've still bet more. So after that becomes a habit and you're not even thinking about it anymore, you can add another 2 days. So now you're walking 4 days a week. And eventually it becomes easy. And that's kind of how those couch to 4K programs and stuff run, is you can't get up off a couch and run a marathon. You can't. You have to take little incremental steps. And so you gradually increase that activity, and you might start with a 15-minute walk and then go to intervals and then run a mile and run for a minute and then walk 2 minutes and then you're running a mile and then so on and so forth until you get to the 5K. Like you don't start just get up and run, but we expect that from ourselves all the time, don't we?
Right.
We expect ourselves to be able to get up and just go to the gym 5 days a week. That's so much energy.
Right. And if we set our expectations too high, we're going to set ourselves up for failure.
Absolutely.
We have to set realistic goals so that we can achieve those goals and then build up.
And we did a podcast too, like I've been referring you to old podcasts through this entire one, but we did one on SMART goals. And that's kind of what this is about too, is you want to set those SMART goals. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time sensitive. So you've got to make sure that whatever you're setting, like I said, you're not trying to expect yourself to the moon like straight out of the gate.
Right.
So to kind of recap, our 3 main reasons, other than like physical, like actually physically are incapable of doing something, our 3 main reasons for procrastination are that you got to ask yourself is, do I really want the reward? Because you may not even want what you're trying to make yourself do. Is there a reason why you're avoiding doing whatever you're supposed to be doing? Like, is there, maybe I don't want to go to gym because there's a guy there that keeps looking at me funny and it's bothering me? Like, is there a reason why I'm avoiding it? And then number 3, do I have the emotional energy to do it? So
yeah, I think these are all things that we have to ask ourselves to help us increase our emotional energy and motivation. And if we answer those questions for ourselves, we can find that emotional energy and the motivation. And when you answer those questions, you're going to know for yourself. Just like Amber put that piece in front of you, you're going to be able to take those books off the table. Your table's going to be put in front of you to where it's going to be manageable.
Okay, so thanks for joining us this week, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle @S&T Wellbeing.